So, Patrick, in your testimony, you discussed the exponential increase in digital classified information, and all of our panelists have concurred with that. I'm always struck by the fact we're seeing an estimated 50 million new classified records each year. It's really hard to wrap your mind around the sheer volume of that. And most of all these records are now electronic, not pieces of paper like we think about with the rules as existed not too long ago. So if you could tell the committee, what are some of the major challenges that we face in managing classified information that is digital specifically?
Thank you for the question. So one of the reasons those numbers are so high is because in the post 9/11 era, and just with the development of technology, network technology in general, we have proliferated secret and top secret information networks to support the activities of a larger national security and homeland security portion of government and the industrial base that participates in it. So there are simply more ways and more direct ways for the 4.5 million people that have a security clearance to create a classified record. And the template for every one of them on those networks says, what's the classification level, and provides a tool to assist in choosing to classify that record. It does not say, does this need to be classified, yes, no, what harm would come from this. It is simply a digital recitation of whatever the other document was, an email that comes to you already classified, and I reply, I add no additional classified information to it, that email is also marked as classified. And so in the counts that ISOO attempts to do with some accuracy, they get harder and harder to do because you have created, proliferated digital classified items. That's done, that infrastructure and the culture that the users across the government live in is one of protection. Your job is not to release this information. Your job is to protect this information. There's a one-way incentive structure in place. And so there's a culture change needed that can only come from the top, that can only be reinforced by policy, practice, tools, and training. I commend the activities of D&I Haynes and others in government who have begun to utilize the release of current classified information to influence the decisions that are made in national security and operational contexts, such as we've seen in the run-up to Ukraine and in dealing with China as a rising power. That's a signal that it's a possible thing to consider, but it is only at the highest level that people are granted the privilege to think that way. And we have to figure out a way to train people and support the change in behavior that they can actually question, does this really need to be classified? I cannot tell you how many emails I received back in the day when I was living every day in classified, hey, do you want to go to lunch? And somebody has a default classifier. You can actually set a default. Everyone is going to say this thing. And that is emblematic, I think, of the challenge and the drivers for it.
So this committee, we're going to look at all of the different drivers that are involved, but I just want to ask specifically about one that you mentioned, Squaitine mentioned as well, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Something this committee is investigating. We had a hearing last week about the promises of artificial learning, but also the concerns and the challenges associated with it, and we have to think that through. So and you mentioned in your testimony how machine learning and artificial intelligence gives us a tool to manage massive amount of data, which we know that's appropriate to be thinking about. But tell the committee not just the opportunities, but talk to us about the pitfalls of using artificial intelligence and machine learning to deal with this issue.
Well, I think the greatest concern would be where decision rights lay on the product that the AI puts forth, right? To whether or not that would require review. If we have petabytes of data to search through to find the needle that is of the public interest, and then to have it considered as a needle found and not thinking about the whole haystack, I think that is ultimately a decision that rests with a human, but it has been served up. And through a process that's trusted and, demonstrably so in the technological ways, to then say, here are the few needles that you need to think about, and the argument to protect or not protect can be judged based on that.
Thank you. We'll come back to you later over the time. I do want to get Ms. Goyden in here. You talked about the classification or declassification process after 25 years and mentioned why we have a backlog and why that's not working effectively in your opening comments. But I'd like you to drill down more, give us some specifics as to why that is failing and things that this committee should consider changing, and maybe not just having a flat 25 years or perhaps just enforcing that. I'd love your thoughts.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the executive order says that all information of permanent historical value must be automatically declassified at 20 years, whether or not it has been, 25 years, whether or not it has been reviewed, and that's a quote. But in practice, a lot of the documents don't even get to the National Archives. They're not even accessioned until the agencies have performed their own manual review, nothing automatic about it. And there are 9 categories of information that are exempt from automatic declassification. So in theory, that's what they are looking for. They're also looking to see if other agencies might have equities in those documents, and then they will send the documents to those other agencies. That often happens sequentially, which adds a lot of time. Some of these 9 exemptions, if you add them all together, they cover a lot of ground, probably too much ground, and some of them are worded extremely broadly, so they give the agencies a lot of discretion. If the agencies find a single word that needs to remain classified, that's exempt, they will withhold the entire document rather than simply redacting that word. That's called a pass-fail approach. In addition, there's a statute, the Kyle Lott Amendment is what it's called, that requires agencies to do a line-by-line review of these documents unless they can certify that the documents are highly unlikely to contain any nuclear information. And these agencies are extremely risk-averse. They're not going to designate large categories of information as being highly unlikely. So the combination of this sequential, lengthy manual review with a pass-fail approach with the Kyle Lott Amendment means not only that this process takes years and years, but also that an extremely unimpressive percentage of documents come out the other side of this process declassified. So roughly half of documents that are reviewed end up being declassified, and there's a backlog of about 600 million pages of documents that haven't even been reviewed. That's what automatic declassification looks like today.
Right. 600 million pages, line by line.
That's a lot of work.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. So definitely we need reforms. Ranking Member Paul, recognize.